standing at a roadside stand with a watermelon in both hands, giving it a knock and a sniff, and not really knowing what you're listening for. Nearly everybody's done that. You hand over $6, maybe more, and you take it home hoping. Then you cut it open and it's pale and watery and flat tasting, and that hope turns into a small, quiet disappointment. That's not bad luck. Nobody ever sat you down and taught you what a ripe fruit actually looks, feels, and smells like. My name's Wendell Hartley, and I keep an orchard and a garden in the Blue Ridge foothills of Virginia. Today, I'm going to hand you the full set of signs for 4 summer fruits, start to finish, so this never happens to you again. It's not just the money, though $6 or $8 for a bad melon stings plenty on its own. It's the whole afternoon built around it. The cookout you planned, the kids waiting with plates out, the neighbor you invited over especially because you wanted to share something good. You cut that melon open in front of everybody, and instead of that deep red, dripping, perfect slice you pictured, you get something pale and mealy, and you feel it, that little sting of having let people down over something as simple as a piece of fruit. Multiply that by a whole summer of guessing, and it adds up to real money wasted and real disappointment piled on top of disappointment. Here's the thing worth saying plainly. None of that was ever your fault. Nobody handed you a lesson on this. It's knowledge that used to pass naturally from one generation to the next, standing at a market table with somebody who knew what they were doing, and for a lot of us, that chain just broke somewhere along the way. It's not that you weren't paying attention, it's that the paying attention was never taught to you in the first place. My Aunt Ruth ran a roadside produce stand here in Virginia for over 40 years, and I used to stand next to her table as a boy watching her work. She'd walk down a whole row of melons, quick as anything, tipping each one up to look underneath, giving it a knock, hefting it in one hand, and setting most of them right back down until she landed on the one. 10 seconds, maybe less, and she was never wrong. She wasn't gifted with some special sense for it. She was reading signs, plain signs, same ones I'm about to hand you today, and once you know them, you'll read fruit the exact same way she did. Here's what we're covering. 4 fruits: watermelon, pineapple, cantaloupe, and strawberry, and every sign worth knowing for each one. So by the end of this, you'll be able to walk up to any pile of fruit and know within seconds which ones are worth taking home. Before we get into it, I'll mention once and only once that I've put the whole of this kind of know-how, plus quite a bit more, into a written guide over on my site, if that's ever useful to you down the road. Now, let's get into it properly, starting with the fruit that trips up more people than any other, the watermelon. There are 4 signs worth knowing here, and if you learn all 4, you'll pick a good one nearly every single time. The first, and honestly the most important, is the field spot. Turn the melon over and look at its underside. You'll find a patch, sometimes small, sometimes fairly large, where the melon sat resting on the ground while it grew on the vine. Every single watermelon has one, no exceptions, and the color of that patch tells you almost everything you need to know. If it's a deep, buttery, almost golden yellow, close to the color of good cornbread or ripe corn on the cob, that melon had its full time out in the sun before it was cut, and it's going to be sweet clear through. If instead that patch is pale white, or worse, has a greenish tint to it, set that melon back down without a second thought, because it was pulled off the vine too early, before it had the chance to develop any real sugar, and it's going to taste like watery nothing. This single sign, more than any other, will save you from more bad melons than everything else on this list combined. So if you only remember one thing today, make it this one. The second sign is something most people actually mistake for a flaw, and that's the webbing, those rough, brown, corky-looking lines and speckled patches you sometimes see scattered across the rind. A lot of folks see that and assume it means the melon is old or damaged in some way, and they pass right over it. That's backwards. That webbing is actually scar tissue left behind from where bees visited and pollinated the flower while the fruit was forming. And here's the plain mechanism behind why that matters. The more times a flower gets pollinated, generally speaking, the more fully the fruit develops and the sweeter it tends to turn out. So a melon carrying a good deal of that brown webbing is a melon the bees paid a lot of attention to. And that's a point in its favor, not against it. Don't shy away from a webbed melon at the stand. Reach for it. The third sign is size, and the plain wisdom passed down through generations of growers is to go for a melon that sits in the middle of the pile, size-wise. Not the biggest one you can find, thinking bigger must mean better, and not the smallest either, thinking it'll be more concentrated in flavor. The middling ones, more often than not, turn out to be the most reliable and the truest to what a good watermelon should taste like. And while we're on the subject of size and shape, I want to gently clear something up, because you've probably heard the old story about boy melons being long and watery and girl melons being round and sweet. It's a charming bit of folklore, and you'll hear people repeat it like it's settled fact, but a watermelon doesn't have a gender, and the shape you're looking at is mostly just a function of which variety it happens to be, not a sign of sweetness one way or the other. So don't waste your time hunting through a pile looking for a particular shape. Trust the field spot and the weight instead, because those are the signs actually telling you something real. And that brings us to the fourth sign, weight, which is a genuinely reliable one. Pick the melon up in one hand, and if you can, heft a second one of roughly the same size right alongside it for comparison. The best melon in the bunch is almost always the one that feels heavier than you'd expect just from looking at it, because that extra heft is water and sugar packed densely inside. A melon that feels surprisingly light for its size is more likely to be dry, or worse, hollow somewhere inside where it shouldn't be. While you've got it in hand, give it a firm knuckle rap too. A good ripe melon answers back with a deep, hollow, almost drum-like sound, resonant and full. A dull, flat thud instead usually means it's gone past its prime or has a problem inside. Put those four signs together: a creamy field spot, plenty of webbing, a middling size, and real heft with a hollow knock, and you genuinely cannot go wrong. Now let's move on to the pineapple, a fruit a lot of people find mysterious under all those spikes, but which actually shows its ripeness just as plainly as the watermelon does once you know where to look. Start with color. A properly ripe pineapple carries a warm golden yellow running up its sides, and that color tends to be most obvious down near the base. The safer choice at the store is always the one that's gone properly golden, rather than staying mostly green. And here's a piece of this that trips a huge number of people up, so listen close. Some folks buy a green pineapple thinking it'll finish ripening and sweeten up sitting on the kitchen counter over the next few days. It will not. This is the single most important thing to understand about a pineapple. Unlike a banana or a peach, once it's cut away from the plant, it does not develop any additional sugar. Whatever sweetness it had the moment it was picked is the entire amount of sweetness it will ever have. It might soften a little sitting there, and it will eventually start to go off, but sweeten it will not. So don't buy a green one hoping for the best. Buy it properly golden, because with a pineapple, what you see at the register is genuinely all you're going to get. Next, check the crown, that spiky green top. Take hold of one of the smaller inner leaves and give it a gentle tug. If every leaf up there is locked in tight and refuses to budge at all, the fruit underneath likely isn't ripe yet. On the other end, if a leaf comes free at the barest, lightest touch with almost no resistance, that fruit has likely gone past ripe and is heading toward overripe. What you're aiming for is the middle ground, a leaf that offers just a little resistance before coming free with a gentle, honest pull. That tells you the fruit underneath is right where it should be. After that, give the whole pineapple a light squeeze. Despite that hard, armored shell, a properly ripe one will yield just the smallest bit under your hands. A slight softness, never rock hard, but never mushy either. And last, the best test of the whole bunch. Lift the pineapple up and smell the base, right at the spot where it was cut or grew from the plant. A properly ripe pineapple gives off a sweet, rich, almost honeyed fragrance right there at the base, a smell that genuinely promises the sweetness waiting inside. If it smells like sweet honey, take it home with confidence. If it smells like nothing at all, it was picked too early, and it's going to stay that way regardless of how long you leave it on the counter, so set it down and try the next one in the pile. The nose, more than the eyes, is what tells you the truth about a pineapple. If you've ever brought home a bland melon or a green pineapple thinking it would ripen up on its own, that's not a mark against your judgment. Nobody ever walked you through these particular signs before, and that's really the entire reason this video exists in the first place. Moving on now to the cantaloupe, that netted melon that hides a fair amount from you unless you know exactly where to check. Start by looking the whole rind over all the way around, checking for cracks, soft or mushy patches, mold, or any sign of real damage. If it isn't sound and whole across its entire surface, set it aside and look for a better one, because damage in one spot is often a sign of trouble spreading underneath. Next, check the color showing through beneath that rough netting. A ripe cantaloupe reveals a warm, beige, almost golden tan color under there, while a green cast peeking through the netting is a clear sign it hasn't ripened yet. Choose the tan over the green every time. Then comes the weight test, same as the watermelon. Heft it in your hand and choose whichever one feels heavier than expected for its size, since that extra weight means it's genuinely full of juice rather than being dry inside. Give it a knock too, and listen for that same deep, hollow sound that tells you the flesh inside is developed and ripe. And last, the two best tests of all, and they work best done together. Press gently with your thumb on the end of the melon where the stem used to attach. It should give just slightly under the pressure, but it should never feel soft or sunken in. And while your thumb is right there, lean in and smell that same spot. A ripe cantaloupe breathes out a sweet, musky, genuinely unmistakable perfume right at that stem end. A cantaloupe that smells sweet there and gives just slightly to your thumb is exactly ready to eat. One that smells like nothing at all still needs time. And one that smells overly strong, almost fermented, combined with real softness, has already gone too far past its prime. Put it all together, sound rind, tan rather than green, heavier than expected, a hollow knock, and a sweet-smelling stem end with a slight give, and that's your complete cantaloupe checklist. And finally, the strawberry, where the approach is a little different from the other three. Picking a good strawberry mostly comes down to plain appearance, deep red color across the entire berry, with no white or green patches near the top shoulders, and a fragrance you can pick up even before you get close. So rather than spend more time on picking, I want to hand you the two things that will actually keep the strawberries you bring home from spoiling on you before you get the chance to eat them. Because that's genuinely where most people lose the majority of their berries. The first thing, and this one surprises a lot of folks, do not pull the green caps and stems off your strawberries the moment you get them home. It feels natural to want everything washed and hulled and ready to go, but that's exactly the wrong move. The instant you tear that cap away, you open up a small wound in the berry, and moisture starts escaping right through that opening, which speeds up softening and spoilage considerably faster than it would happen otherwise. Leave the caps on. A capped berry keeps whole and firm noticeably longer than a hulled one does. Only pull that cap the moment the berry is genuinely on its way into your mouth or into whatever you're cooking. The second thing is guarding actively against mold. Strawberry mold spreads shockingly fast, sometimes moving from a single affected berry to an entire basket in the span of a single night. So the moment you bring your berries home, take a minute to look them over individually. The instant you spot even one berry that's gone soft, fuzzy, or visibly moldy, pull that one out immediately and throw it away before it has any chance to touch the rest of the basket. One bad berry left sitting among the good ones will take down the whole carton faster than you'd expect. Pull the bad ones the instant you notice them, keep the rest capped, cool, and dry, and your strawberries will genuinely last quite a bit longer than you're probably used to. Now, let me say a plain word about why knowledge this simple and this useful ever got lost to begin with, because I think it's worth understanding. I don't believe there's some deliberate scheme behind it, and I want to be honest that this next part is more my own opinion than settled fact. But it does seem to me that a grocery store loses nothing by selling you an average melon instead of an outstanding one. Every melon on that pile has to sell to somebody eventually, good or bad, and there's genuinely no incentive built into that system for teaching customers how to pick out only the best and leave the rest behind, because then the rest would just sit there unsold. So the plain, practical signs that any grower or longtime market seller has always known simply never got passed down to the ordinary shopper standing at the table. And people have gone on squeezing and knocking with no real idea what they're actually feeling or listening for, bringing home the occasional lucky sweet one right alongside the bland ones. It's not exactly hidden from you on purpose. It's just never really been anybody's specific job to hand it over. Until, I suppose, right about now. So let's pull all of this together into something you can actually carry with you to the store this week. For the watermelon, look for a creamy, buttery yellow field spot underneath. Don't shy away from good brown webbing on the rind. Reach for a middle-sized melon rather than the biggest or smallest. And choose whichever feels heaviest in your hand alongside a hollow, drum-like knock. For the pineapple, look for warm golden color, especially near the base. A crown leaf that gives with just a gentle, honest tug, a slight yielding squeeze, and above all else, a genuinely sweet smell right at the base. Remembering always that it will never grow any sweeter after it's been picked. For the cantaloupe, check for a sound, undamaged rind, a tan color rather than green showing under the netting, real heft for its size, a hollow knock, and a sweet-smelling stem end that gives just slightly under your thumb. And for the strawberry, leave those green caps on right up until the moment you're ready to eat them, and pull any berry that shows the first sign of mold the instant you spot it, before it has the chance to spread. Here's something worth actually doing with all of this, and I'd encourage you to try it this week rather than just filing it away. Next time you're at the store or a farmer's market, pick just one fruit off this list. The watermelon field spot is probably the easiest place to start, and physically put your hands on 2 or 3 of them and check it for real before you buy. Get comfortable with just that one sign before you try to juggle all 4 fruits at once. And I genuinely love to hear from you down in the comments what part of the country you're shopping or gardening in, and whether your own family had a particular trick passed down for picking good fruit. Because I know nearly every household seems to carry at least one, whether it's a specific way of thumping a melon or reading a stem, and I truly do enjoy collecting them from folks who watch this channel. And here's a picture worth holding on to. The next time you bring home a melon that's genuinely, properly sweet, using everything you just learned. Imagine handing a slice of it to that one person in your life who always insists they don't really care for watermelon, and watching them quietly go back for a second piece without a word. That right there is worth learning 4 sets of signs for. If any of this was useful to you, and you'd like the fuller version written down in one place, along with quite a bit more of this kind of old growing and choosing knowledge, there's a small guide for that over on my site. Take it or leave it entirely. No pressure either way, I just wanted you to know it's there. Next time out here, I want to walk you through how to keep a whole harvest of fruits and vegetables fresh through the colder months in a proper root cellar, the old way, so that nothing you grow or bring home ever has to go to waste before you get the chance to actually eat it.